for losing with this. All right,
Crazy.
let's see.
Is owned by Alexander Broadcasting Corporation, Fresno, California.
Hot 97.7. My God, we're late, but we're here.
We made it.
We
We
made,
made it. Oh my goodness. You gotta love technology. Love it and hate it all in the same breath, right?
and you would think a guy like me who's been in this industry, in this business, for quite a long time, you would think, I would have as little issues as possible. But you know what? Murphy's Law. It exists and it's here. And he likes to rear his ugly head quite often. Michael J. Mike Moritas right down the line. Hot 97.7. You can check us out on our YouTube page. Just type in right down the line or go to our Twitter page and you can get the link right there, right down the line on our Twitter. Oh my God. How was your week, man?
Pretty good. Same as always. It was an easy week. Titans are off, so no game previews to write or anything like that. So
There you go.
got my bearings back.
Yeah, a little bye week for your guys, so you kind of get
Yep.
to chill a
Yep.
little bit.
And wall to wall football I get to watch today on my
Yeah,
couch, eating chips and, drinking a couple of beers. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a nice day. It's
little
gonna be a
chip,
beautiful Sunday out there today.
right? So, look, I first of all, you guys know me and my Steelers, and I'm gonna tell you, man. Before we get into the whole, these guys going up on the, on the trade block, because we got about a week or so before that deadline hits. What happened in that Bills Steelers game? Look, I I am not the guy that will go and I like reading social media and I like seeing other people's takes on stuff, but I don't need my fellow Steeler fans. We got to get rid of it. Look, I get it. Nobody likes Matt Canada. I get it. Nobody likes Canada. I get it. And sometimes his play calling is suspect. It's warranted, right? And I'm on that side of the coin. But I'm starting to wonder if Mike Tomlin, as much as I respect him, admire him, and appreciate what he's done for this franchise, I'm starting to wonder if his mindset needs to be changed just a little bit. Is it too old school? Is he just thinking these things have worked in the past? I'm not going to change them, because the culture there, it's there. The winning, the desire, the next man up, the standard is the standard. It's all there. But last week against the Bills, it was not there, at least on the football field. What was your take from that game, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, just a case of a really good team beating up on a really bad team. I mean, the deck was stacked even if TJ Watt plays. Now you take TJ Watt out, you don't have the best pass rusher in the NFL to go after one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You're going to get smoked. And I believe they were without Minka Fitzpatrick also, which
Yep.
obviously doesn't help things further. So listen, man, I personally I love Tomlin. I think he's a great coach. I love the things that he says. I mean, he's one of the more entertaining coaches to watch in a press conference, and not even
Oh, yeah.
because he says anything controversial, but some of his lines are just legendary.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just think this is a case of we just don't have players. I just think that the Steelers are kind of in that weird in between spot where they have some good pieces that maybe they can compete with, but the quarterback situation is a disaster. And that's not to say that Kenny Pickett is not the answer there. He very well could be, but he doesn't have a good offensive line. He's got no help from the running game. And really developing in this type of situation is going to be difficult and probably going to delay the process with him a little bit. So, a lot of people are going to be calling for Tomlin's head after the season. If that happens, it's not a case of Mike Tomlin did a bad job, I think, per se. It's more about maybe it's time just for a new face, a new voice in this franchise to move it forward into the next chapter. They've only had 3 head coaches since what, 1969 or something
Yep.
like that.
Uh-huh.
So maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just time for a change. But I wouldn't put that all on Tomlin if it happens.
Right. And look, here's the thing. I don't agree with you on maybe moving on from Tomlin. I think maybe it just needs to be, and like he said, it's not going to fix itself in a day. It didn't, that debacle didn't happen in a day. So to fix it isn't going to happen in a day. And they have Tampa today, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of adjustments were made. I do agree with you on the fact that, look, Buffalo is just that good of a team.
Yes.
And if they find any hole anywhere on you, they pounce on it. And they find a way to expose you. And they did that to the Steelers quite impressively, I might add. It was one of the most painful football games I have watched my Steelers play in like 20 years.
Yeah. And listen, Steelers have been,
tough.
Steelers fans in the Tomlin era, you guys have been very fortunate. I mean, on top of the Super Bowl, you have a team that's been always competitive.
Sure.
But this is what a rebuild looks like. This is what a
Right.
rebuild centered around a quarterback often looks like.
Sure.
You're going to have that one messy year, maybe even 2 messy years before you really get things going. So this is what you can expect. I'm very 50-50 on Tomlin as far as keeping him or letting him go, as I just, explained a few minutes ago. But, the offensive coordinator, I think if there's a change to definitely be made, either in season or after the season, it would be an offensive coordinator for sure.
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 Canada could walk in as a Steeler fan, it wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Yep.
As a guy that watches football, I think they absolutely need to make that change with him. He's not the right fit. It's not working. There's just so many variables that you saw that come out of that game. But you make a good point. That's what a rebuild looks like. And sometimes you have to go through those painful seasons. And for Steeler fans, that's why everybody's clamoring on social media, because they're not used to it. It's not something that that we're accustomed to. You have Ben Roethlisberger, for 20 years, but it's like at some point Ben should have been gone a couple of years ago, to be honest with you.
Sure.
And that's coming from a guy who's been a fan since I was 10 years old and have been dissecting their game since I was 13. So, at some point, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I think they took a little too long to rip the Band-Aid off. And before we move on, just when it comes to Mike Tomlin, for me, or for any coach for that matter, we saw Matt Rule leave Carolina, got fired from Carolina, and we're going to talk about that. But it's like, when you get rid of a coach, the first thing that hopefully that front office is thinking is, okay, before we let him go, who are we going to get? Who's out there? Who's going to replace him? Who's going to be the better replacement? Now, I'm not trying to flex my chest, when it comes to the Steelers, but in all honesty, if you think about it, if you let go of Mike Tomlin, who's out there? Who's honestly out there that's going to be able to come in there, maintain that culture that's been built for 50 years that hasn't gone away with 3 coaches? You're going to have to find a pretty special individual to come in there and fill those shoes, which is why I don't think it's going to happen. I think Matt Canada will leave before there's even more talk about Mike Tomlin leaving. But anything can happen. It's the NFL, and we know how that works. So,
yeah, and Tomlin will have a job in 3 seconds after he gets fired. So that's another thing. Like, you have a good coach. He's not a bad coach, and I don't put a lot of this stuff on him. Sure, there are changes he could make, and maybe coming to the current era a little bit more, and maybe relying on the passing game a little bit more. But he's a good coach, and just a testament to that is how quickly he would be scooped up
Oh
if
yeah,
he was available. I would take him
absolutely.
on as if the Titans needed a head coach, he'd
Oh
be the
man,
top of my list. Top of my list.
I think Mike. I think he'd be the top of a lot of NFL teams list,
100%.
to say the least. All right, Rams shopping Cam Akers. Mike, what happens here if they're shopping him? Where's the best place in your mind for Cam Akers to go? Who's got that giant hole, man? Who's got that hole that you'd be like, "Woo, man! If we could get a hold of a back like Cam Akers, where do you think he would go? Where do you think?"
I don't think. I mean, yeah. I mean, you could point to running back needy teams, but Cam Akers has looked terrible this year. I mean, he has not
Yes,
looked like himself since
since
coming
week
back from
one.
that injury. Yeah, I mean, and now you see these issues that he's having with the team that, as Josina Anderson reported yesterday, are football related. So who knows what's going on there, but Akers has not looked good. Then again, the Rams' offensive line has been putrid. So maybe that's not all on him. As far as teams that could use help, I mean, the Bills would be one of those teams. But I mean, is he better than Devin Singletary? Maybe.
No,
Maybe down the line he could be.
right.
The Ravens, they got J.K. Dobbins. They'd probably be okay. Um, who's another team I'm looking at here? Is the Falcons have some injury issues. The
Yep.
Cardinals have injury
I was gonna say the
issues.
Cardinals might not be a bad spot. Is where I
Yeah,
was going.
and normally I wouldn't even suggest a team in the same division, but if the
Right.
need to get rid of him is bad enough, I think
Sure.
they would unload him. So I mean, those are a couple of teams you could look at and say could use him, but you have to ask yourself the question: is he really that big of an upgrade over what you already have?
Exactly.
So price would certainly factor into it, but I could see him moving someplace else, and maybe if Carolina trades Christian McCaffrey, maybe
Sure.
they look for a possibly cheap alternative with Cam Akers in that situation. So we'll see how that plays out.
See, for me, so this morning, I get up and I hit the trades and I look at everything. And Ian Rappaport says that, according to sources, they're saying that he is out today due to what was described as personal reasons. Okay. Right there, for me, a little bit of a red flag. So maybe in hindsight, his poor performance has something to do with off the field. We've talked about this with Tom Brady. Obviously, what he's going through with his wife, Gisele Bundchen. And it's like, as much as you want to say, and we all say it in the real world, I've owned companies. I still own companies. I have employees. And the biggest thing that you always tell them is this: whatever you got going on at home, please leave it at the door. Okay. If you need my help, I'm here for you. But I need you to leave it at the door so I get the best performance out of you. Right. And that's not always easy to do because things can be tumultuous outside of your workplace. And at the end of the day, we have to remember that these guys, they're regular guys. They're human beings. They have issues. They have flaws. We know that. We've seen it. And I think that in part might be the reason why we're not seeing the Cam Akers that we're used to seeing. Whether or not, he goes somewhere that's needed, he becomes a backup somewhere. His performance as of late, I don't see a gang of people lining up to grab Cam Akers. I just don't see it.
No, and that's why I say, I struggle to find teams where I'm saying, okay, where is Cam Akers an upgrade? And he's
Right.
really, based on what we've seen so far this year, he's really not. He's the kind of guy you're going to add on top of whatever current situation you have. So, yeah, I mean, he's not really anything that's going to be that attractive. Now, as far as the personal issues, with Josina reporting that it's football related, maybe the Rams told him, hey, we're going to go with Darrell Henderson this week, and give him the bulk of the carries. And maybe that was behind it. Or maybe it's something bigger than that, more serious off the field issue. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I can't see anybody breaking down the door for Cam
Sure.
Akers with what we've seen. So this is kind of a bad timing for them to try to look to trade him because they're going to get about as low a return as you could possibly get for this guy.
And it's unfortunate because I tell you, Mike, you and I both know that this guy is talented, right?
Sure. Yeah, and we saw it, in flashes early on in his career with the Rams. So I mean, it's there. Just
Right.
why isn't it there right now is the
Right.
question.
That is absolutely the biggest question right now. Teams reaching out, speaking of Christian McCaffrey, to the Panthers, but the Panthers aren't going to take what they're calling a fire sale. They're not just going to give him up. And why would you? This is one of the most talented, and I say this with conviction, one of the most talented and gifted athletes in the NFL right now. He just is. He's on a team that hasn't been able to capitalize on his abilities, on the fact that this guy is just, I mean, he's an all-down back. He can catch it out of the backfield. I mean, this is a guy, that's why I use the word athlete. He is an amazing athlete. He comes back after being, after having an injury and is still playing fairly well. Here's the thing. Are you really trying to give up? I mean, for me, I always thought that you take one of the best players you have, and I know you build around your quarterback. But how in the world are they just missing the boat? I mean, obviously, they're not very good at getting head coaches. They're obviously having issues in the front office, and now you're getting ready to get rid of Christian McCaffrey, the best player on your entire team. Is this a good move for Carolina?
I think so. Yeah, actually, with a running back, you never know what that shelf life is. And especially with him, with the injury issues he's had, you're looking at a rebuild. And they have some nice pieces on both sides of the ball, and definitely pieces that teams are going to be interested in trading for. DJ Moore, Brian Burns, to a lesser extent, Robbie Anderson. So this team is looking at a full rebuild. You got a new head coach coming in next year. If you can get, let's say, because I mean, McCaffrey's got a pretty hefty salary that a team's going to have to pick up. But if you can have a team pick up that salary, and grab maybe a second round pick or even a third round pick, and you can unload that salary, I think that's a move that a rebuilding team should make. And it's one like with, well, I mean, the Giants, a little different situation with Saquon, but I mean, they're 4-1 now, so they probably won't trade him. But what I was talking about last week and the last couple of weeks with Saquon is if, you don't see a future for this guy and you're a rebuilding team, you need to get all the assets you can get, and you need to clear up all the cap space you can as well. So, I mean, that checks both boxes for the Panthers if they trade him.
Yeah, a few years ago, McCaffrey got a 4-year, $64 million extension, made him the highest paid running back in football. So, I mean, through 2025, I mean, so, there's some cap room. So, look, I'm just, and there's rumors too. I mean, you got to remember his dad played in Denver. So now there's rumors getting stirred up, should Denver, be a player in this and try to get a hold of, the second coming of another McCaffrey. I like your point about all running backs have a shelf life. And I don't think that Christian is anywhere near that. I think there's a lot left in the tank with him. And I think any team would be, would be better for his addition. But, we'll see that, that's another guy that you have to go, wow, where would he be needed most too? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, reports suggest 49ers, Bills, Broncos, Rams. Those are all teams that are trying to win now. So the team that's acquiring him, you're not so much worried about the long-term outlook with him. You're making this move to win right now and in the next couple of years. And then you deal with all that other stuff after. So, I mean, when you're a team like the Panthers, by the time you're good again, McCaffrey's going to be, one foot out the door or ready to retire or on the downside of his career. The catch-22, I will say, though, is that you're probably, if you're the Panthers, you're drafting a quarterback at the top of the draft next year. So having a guy like McCaffrey as kind of that safety outlet for a young quarterback is great to have. So that's something that the Panthers are going to have to weigh as well. But by the time they're ready to compete, McCaffrey, that's going to be 3 years down the road. And what is McCaffrey going to have left at that point? So I think you just get what you can for him now and just move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so reminiscent of kind of, and don't get me wrong, don't start sending bad mail and messages. I'm not comparing him to Barry Sanders or saying he's as good as Barry Sanders, but let's say what it is. He is the best player on that team, and it's very reminiscent of what we watched Barry Sanders go through. He was on a team that just could not find a way to win. Coaching was always, subpar. They didn't draft well. They didn't get enough people to actually get the job done. And Barry stayed there for 10 years and just played his heart out, never to see a championship. One of the best running backs we've ever seen. He's on that list. I don't care who you are. If you are a fan of football, you have Barry Sanders on your list. Where it is or not, is always up for debate, but he's on it. And I think at some point, I watch him and I watch what he's going through and dealing with. It's very reminiscent of Barry. This is a very talented back that is not one-dimensional, that can do so many different things for your football team at any given time. And he's just on a team that just can't get the job done. And it's unfortunate,
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't be so gung-ho about trading him if it wasn't for his injury history. You just don't know when that other shoe is going to drop with him. Maybe
Right.
it doesn't. Maybe he stays healthy the remainder of the contract. Chances are that's not going to happen. So I think while his stock is as high as it is, you have teams that are going to be battling against one another and creating this kind of bidding war. I think now is the time to strike if you're the Panthers. Unload them and get the draft capital and the cap space for the next couple of years.
Absolutely. All right, guys, hang tight. When we get back, Matt Rule, see ya. He's out of here. We'll talk about that. Is he going to go back to college? I don't know. Rumors say no. We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. Right down the line, Michael J., Mike Moritas. Keep it locked, Joe.
Let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the ad.
Get out of that bed and crank it up. It's the Morning Boombox with Michael J. From 6 to 10 a.m. on the all-new Hot 97.7.
Y'all new Hot 97.7, Michael J. Mike Moritas right down the line. Happy Sunday. Football Sunday. That is right down the line, brought to you by our good friends over at W Energy Drink. No calories, no sugar, no filters, no filters. Yeah, I hope not. No artificial colors. Get over to w.gg, type in Michael J Radio, and get that 10% off your next purchase. You can even start off with what they call a starter pack. So you get the shaker, you get a couple of the drinks, you can try it out. It's only $15, and if you use the promo code, you can still get 10% 10% off. So check it out today. W Energy Drink. It's W.GG. Get over there today. All right, Matt Rule. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Killed him. They said, you're not getting the job done, Mr. Rule, so we are going to let you go. Not something that we see often, Mike. It's kind of taboo. You don't ever want to get rid of your head coach. I mean, this isn't even the midpoint. You know what I mean? We're still kind of in the, let's get it going mode. There's still teams that, have 2 wins, 1 win that you could say, well, the rest of this, we're still at that point in the season. We're not even midway. And they got rid of Matt Rule after a 1-4 start in the season. I mean, this was was this, I guess my biggest question for you, Mike, is, was this as shocking to you as it was for me?
Not at all. I
Really?
mean, the Panthers have been a disaster this year, and really they've been a disaster since Rule has taken over. They're just not. You're seeing no signs of progress at all on either side of the ball, and I can understand the owner frustration. Is he's paying a lot of money to Matt Rule, and we have seen no results. Now, I mean, listen, their quarterback situation has been an absolute disaster. They went after Sam Darnold, didn't work out. Went after Baker Mayfield, didn't work out. Brought Cam Newton back, didn't work out. Not in that order, but so it's been an absolute disaster. And I am not, when a team is going this badly, it's got to be really bad for a mid-season coach firing. And as you said, even before the halfway point of the season, very rare. You only see that in instances where things are just a total disaster. And right now things are a total disaster for Carolina. So, if he was a first-year coach, he would survive this. He's not. He's been there a few seasons, and we haven't seen progress. So I think not only was it justified, I really wasn't surprised to see it happen.
There's only so much you can do as an owner, as a GM, when it comes down to what goes on with that football team and what goes on inside that locker room, because the head coach is the one that runs all that. The GM can think whatever he wants. The owner can think whatever he wants, Jerry Jones. And at the end of the day, it all falls on that head coach. We know that. When the team is winning, it's the quarterback. When the team is losing, it's the coach. Then it's the quarterback. So when you're 1-5 and you look at how this team has performed, I mean, you said it perfectly, dude. It has just been bad. There's no, unfortunately for them, you can't look at that team and go, well, I don't know why they fired Matt Rule. Well, I think we all do. I think that you have some talent on that team, and for the fact that he's been there, this isn't his first year, and you just want, you want to believe in these coaches, and you want to go. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett is a perfect example. Bronco fans are ready to, take this guy out behind the shed and shoot him.
Right.
And Matt Rule lost his job. I mean, look, I get it. I understand why he lost his job. And I know sometimes these owners are quick to pull the trigger. Do I think he pulled a little fast? Maybe. Only because, again, I always go back to who are you going to get to replace him? I understand why they did it. I don't know if I would have been a proponent behind it and said, yeah, I agree, get rid of him. I would have been like, look, let's hit the midway, see where we're at. We're already 1-4. I mean, so for me, it would have been, I kind of would have been on the fence. I understand why they did it, and I don't blame them for it because, you have to get those wins. This is a right now league. This is a win today league. We can't be – there's only so many times in franchise history where you have to sit down and go, hey, we got to rebuild. We got to start over. You got to find the right coach to do that with. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be what's going on in Carolina. I don't feel a rebuild type thing. I do now, but prior to him being fired, I didn't feel like they were trying to rebuild. I felt like they were trying to move in the right direction. But it seems like they've been in that perpetual, what are we doing anyway, since Cam Newton left.
Yeah, for sure. They again, another kind of in-betweener rebuild situation. So, like we said, they have some good pieces on both sides of the ball. So any coach, the next coach that's coming in, the rebuild has kind of already begun.
Mhm.
I just think that you need new direction, new leadership, and you've got to figure out that quarterback situation. I mean, it's no coach, I don't care who you are, is going to win with the type of situation they've had under center the last couple of years. So, you know, it it's going to be a very attractive job. I mean, they're going to
Yeah.
have a top 2, 3, pick, and you're probably going to land one of those prized quarterbacks that they desperately need to land. And then, if he turns out to be a good quarterback, you're kind of already halfway there as far as the rebuild process is concerned. You've got
Sure.
some good guys up front on defense. You've got J.C. Horn at cornerback. Looks like he's going to be a good number one cornerback for the next decade. We spoke about McCaffrey. DJ Moore, I think, is a very good player. So there's the pieces there, and they're already in that process. So they've been in it for a couple of years, and they're still kind of in it. So it's not completely hopeless, but it's going to take
Right.
a couple of years for them to straighten things out,
Well,
assuming everything goes well.
yeah. And then, on us talking about, where they're going to go, who they're going to look to. So I guess owner David Tepper is okay with somewhat of a familiar face in a head coaching job. He was the head coach for a year over in 2018 over at Arizona. So Steve Wilkes is going to come in. He's going to replace Rule as the interim coach. Tepper made a couple comments. He said, quote, "There's a lot of season left, and we'll see how the season goes. Ultimately, he's in a position to be in consideration for that position." Had a talk with Steve. No promises were made, but obviously, if he does an incredible job, he'd have to be in consideration for that, end quote. Is this maybe a little telling of, where Tepper might go into that, to fill that head coaching spot? Maybe see, saying words like, if he does an incredible job, that's what kind of threw me off. I was like, so he's got to do an incredible job? Like, why not just say, we'll see how he does. Hopefully he can do what we need to get done. Not, well, if he does an incredible job. It just seems like he kind of stuck a stamp on Steve Wilkes' head, like, incredible. If it ain't incredible, you're not going to be considered. So
Right.
is this a good move? Do you think maybe Steve Wilkes has a shot at maybe earning this position?
No shot. I mean, he would have to run the table and go undefeated and make the playoffs. I mean, that's what you're talking about. Incredible. David Tepper is going to want a splash. He's going to want a big name head coach. He's going to dole out the bucks to get it. You have guys out there. I mean, listen, Peyton's been linked to Miami and Dallas and all these other places. You have Sean Payton out there. You might have Mike Tomlin out there. Those two guys I would take. No offense to Steve Wilkes. He got the raw end of the deal there in Arizona, and got removed for a coach who's not even that good, and I wouldn't say is better than him, but that's another story for another day. There is no way Wilkes keeps this job. I like him, but Tepper is going to go for that big head turning hire, and unfortunately Wilkes is not that guy.
Well, a reason why he stuck that incredible stamp right on his forehead, so that later guys like us can't go back and go, well, you did say he had a shot. And now he can go, yeah, but I said he had to do an incredible job.
Right.
And he didn't do an incredible job. Once
Right.
he took over, we won 4 more games. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And interim coaches never, ever, I mean, not never, ever, but
few
very
and far
rarely,
between, my friend.
very few and far between. So Tepper's, he's a wealthy man, and wealthy men love big, news making moves, and that's what he's going to make. And Wilkes, he'll get an interview or whatever, but he doesn't have much. He doesn't have a ton to work with right now. This team is not going to win many games, so I don't think he's going to be able to do enough to fit that incredible job requirement that Tepper has in order to keep him.
Yeah, it just, I don't see it either, barring an incredible performance. I just don't see it coming out of Carolina. It just kind of is what it is. All right, so let's talk about, is there any other coach that should be concerned with a looming pink slip hanging over their head, Mike? Is there if you had to say there's one coach or more, if you have more, please enlighten us. Are there any coaches right now that should be kind of, as we say in New York, bugging out?
I'll give you one maybe a little off the beaten path, and that's
Okay.
Frank Reich in
Frank Reich?
Indianapolis. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm with
what has
you.
that team accomplished? And they have one of the worst
Much.
offenses in the NFL. Listen, Reich was dealt a really tough hand with Andrew Luck retiring out of
Yeah,
nowhere. I get it. They have not been able to find the replacement. Rivers, Wentz, now Ryan. Ryan might be not might is the worst of the bunch. They keep getting worse and worse
I
with
know.
these, former discarded starters that they keep bringing in here. So, you know, it's a tough thing he's had to go through, and I think Reich is ultimately probably a good coach. But man, I mean, they don't even look serviceable this year on offense. They're terrible, and that
I
game
know.
against the Broncos
Oof.
was a nightmare. And if not for a stupid Russell Wilson pick, you're looking at a 1-3-1 Colts team going into a game against the Jaguars, a team that's had their number. So I mean, the Colts were favored to win the division this year. I don't even think they're better than the Jaguars. They're certainly not better than the Titans.
Oh
Reich
God.
is definitely a guy I would keep an eye on moving forward as far as somebody who could get fired. We know Jim Irsay can be a little wacky, so Reich is
You
another guy
never.
who would probably get a job after. But yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he's got to be on the hot seat.
Well, Frank Reich's got about what 4 years as a head coach. So I mean,
Yeah,
he's got. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of skins on the wall, but let's call it what it is. He still has more experience than a lot of these head coaches,
yep,
that are in here right now. Kevin Stefanski's only been, it's only his second year, I think. So I mean, and that's fine. But when we're talking about, first of all, Jim Irsay, you never know what's going to happen with that guy. It's like you got to flip a coin on,
right.
whether or not he's going to be able to be spoken to that day, or if everybody's like, look, just leave him alone. He's not, that's
Yeah,
what you have to expect.
right.
For
He's like the
me,
crazy uncle in the room.
exactly right, like
Yeah.
the crazy, drunk uncle at the barbecue, burning up the hamburgers, and turning them into hockey pucks. That guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's Jim
Yeah.
Irsay. So for me, the two, obviously, the big one for me is Nathaniel Hackett.
Yes, I
Look,
agree. 100%.
I hate to do it to you, man. I don't know what you were doing in Green Bay, but whatever you brought to the Mile High City is not working, dude. It's not working. And you have a $250 million quarterback that at one point we remember as talking about constantly what Russell did this week, how Russell did that. Look, whether you think he's goofy or not, whether I don't care at this point. This is a talented guy, and you're not going to tell me in 18 months it just went away.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I know he's struggled over the past year and a half, and I understand that, but it's still inert. It's still there. It's in him. Where the hell is it? And if Nathaniel Hackett can't pull it out of him, look, I said this last week. You have to give credit where credit, where credit is due. Coaches sometimes and often more than not will pull that quarterback out of whatever funk. He makes them play better. Just does. That's what a good head coach does. He's got to get in his quarterback's ear. And, right now, Nathaniel Hackett he doesn't seem to be that guy. When he gets up in front of the podium, I don't feel like he's a confident coach. Like he knows what he's talking about. I feel like he's a guy, when he speaks, he is way in over his head. And you can tell by the things that he says at his pressers.
Yeah. If we had seen some kind of signs of progress, like things were moving in the right direction, you'd be a little less, on the side of wanting to get rid of Hackett. But we've seen no progress. I mean,
Right.
if anything, we've seen this offense take steps back every
The
week.
worst.
And listen, some of that's on Russell Wilson, but Hackett has not been able to figure out a way to unlock what's going on here. And another thing I wonder if that's working against Hackett is I wonder if the Broncos brought him in hoping that would help them get Aaron Rodgers instead of Russell Wilson. So I'm wondering if that was originally the plan,
I like
and you
that.
didn't land Aaron Rodgers. Now you have, the match that you didn't want. Maybe you're more likely to move on from him because of that after a season. I think he gets the entire season, although, teetering on the brink as far as first year head coaches and what they need to do to get fired, before they get through a first year.
Right.
You look at Urban Meyer, that's, what he did. This is close to that as far as procedurally, like as far as things are so bad
Right.
that you can't rule out them getting rid of a first-year head coach. The situation is that ugly. There is too much talent on this team for them to not just be average, but to play as bad as they have. And we're seeing no signs of progress. So if there was ever a first-year head coach where things are bad enough that you could possibly see them getting fired after a year or sooner, Hackett is like the poster boy for that right now.
Look, I gave Pete Carroll a lot of credit last week, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Man, he looks great out of this whole situation. I mean, he really is like coming out smelling like roses right now.
As much as I have always thought that Pete Carroll was a sneaky guy because of the way he walked away from USC when he knew those sanctions were being freaking about to come hammering down. He was like, I'm out. See you. Thank you. Mic drop. And he left. So for me, he's always been that sneaky guy, and I'll never get rid of that thought process in my brain about him. However, at the end of the day, he's a head coach. He's an NFL head coach, and you could say whatever you want, but he brought the best out of Russell Wilson. It's obvious. It's absolutely obvious. When you say coaches don't matter to the quarterbacks, you're kidding yourself, because they do. Another coach that I'm a little concerned about, and I know a lot of people maybe aren't, is Dan Campbell. Okay. Lions are 1-4. Not quite sure what's going on over there. They look like they were starting out good. They were playing hard. We all got a piece of them during Hard Knocks this year. So we got to see a little bit of, the behind the scenes and just how bad these guys really felt last year for that horrific season that they had. And they didn't want to have another season like that. Well, I'm here to tell you guys, you're not on the right track. 1-4. I mean, granted, will they win more than 2 games? I'm hoping so. There's a lot of talent on that football team.
Sure.
So, again, at the end of the day, who's going to take the blame? Who's going to take the blame? The coach. I like Dan Campbell. He's a rah-rah guy when you need to be. And it's not even a rah-rah guy. He's kind of like being a former player, the veins come out of his neck. You see him in the side of his forehead. He's that guy. He's a coach that you want to play for. He has that demeanor. He's got that attitude. But there's something missing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's his inexperience. I don't know if maybe he's trying to correlate too much of his prior game day into, I don't know what it is. I like him, but if there's another coach in the NFL that's on the hot seat, it's definitely Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, last week notwithstanding, they've really been competitive every game, which
They have.
Anybody who expected the Lions to, be 500 or even better or whatever. I mean, listen, that was a pipe dream. This team, I'll tell you what's missing: talent on defense. They have nothing. Yeah. I mean, their defense is so bad, and you can only expect your offense to prop up that defense for so long before they have a game like they had last week. Yeah. There's no shame in going into New England and Bill Belichick shutting you down. So I'm not going to go crazy over that loss, and I disagree with you. I don't think Dan Campbell should be on the hot seat. Okay. I think he gets another year after this one. And I think we evaluate from there. If we're not seeing more progress from what this year is, and I do think we've seen progress this year, at least from the offensive side of the ball. And this team is dangerous. They're competitive. You can't take them lightly. They're not like the Texans or the Panthers where they come into town and you just know you're going to beat them because they stink. The Lions are a dangerous team. And I think right now for a rebuilding team, and especially for a franchise like the Lions, that's all you can ask for is to be competitive. And again, last week was ugly, but no DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown probably playing hurt.
Woo! What an incredible talent he is.
Oh my goodness. And don't get me started on, what the Titans could have drafted him over the receiver that they did, who is now on the practice squad and is terrible. Don't get me started on that. But 31 other teams have that story.
There's talent in this on this team.
And we've seen it on offense. And listen, they've been without DeAndre Swift for a pretty good chunk amount of time. Their defense is not getting better. They don't have that talent on defense. Couple of nice pieces, Okudah, Hutchinson. Listen, I think they're moving in the right direction despite their record and what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Remember, in week 1, they gave the Eagles a run for their money, more so than
Yeah.
maybe any team has in the NFL this year. So
Right.
I'm sticking with Dan Campbell for another year. I think he brings a really good element to that team as far as leadership and being able to, get your guys going. I think the players love him. I don't think he's on the hot seat like a lot of people think he is. I think he'll get another year to kind of sort this thing out.
Look, I like I said, I like Dan Campbell, and I would love nothing more than him to get another year to be able to, to look. And I think Detroit, I think that front office is in agreement with us. I think that's kind of where they're probably at too. Look, it's his second year. We're not, let's, because they are competitive. And these games, aren't all that bad, although last week, but they are being competitive. They look like a better team than they were last year. But again, there's a lot of holes in that defense. They need some help on the other side of the ball. All right, let me give you 2 names, and I want you to tell me which one is more on the hot seat maybe than the other, right? So as much as I hate to bring this up, you had just said the Houston Texans. Lovie Smith, 11-year veteran. They are 1-3 right now. And then in Vegas, you have Josh McDaniel. They are 1-4. Which one of those quarterbacks in your mind is maybe on the hot seat more than the other?
I don't think either one, to be honest.
Okay.
If I had to pick one more so than the other, I would definitely go with Lovey, just because of what we saw with David Culley last year and him getting fired despite, doing a decent job with nothing on that team. So I would say Lovey, just because of kind of the unpredictability of the Texans and the move that we saw them make with David Culley. I would say him more so. I think McDaniels, obviously 1-4, not great, but they could easily be 4-1.
Sure.
They are right there. The Texans are miles away. So, I think Josh McDaniels is safer than Lovie Smith is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think either one of them are in any immediate danger. You just brought him over. Let's see what goes down. Look, there's gonna be a lot of issues, and I think ownership knows that. I think Davis knows that. I think they're willing to be patient with him because of, quote, where he came from and who he's been a part of his whole career. So I don't think Josh McDaniels is in any immediate danger. I am concerned a little bit more for Lovie Smith as well.
Sure.
The Houston Texans are just not showing up, it seems like. And like you said, there's just been so many issues going on lately. I would hate to see someone like Lovie, who finally got another shot at a head coaching job. I'm not going to lie to you. When I saw him, when the report came out that he was going to the Texans, I'm like, really? There? Houston? Like I was just, I was glad to see him back in the mix, because I think he's a very smart and intelligent football coach, and he's got the goods, and he's got skins on the wall, and he's got a great football mind. But when I saw him going to the Texans, it was a little concerning for me, just because I was so happy to see him get another job like that I was just being, I was more of a personal thing.
Yeah, I think I don't think he's in the long-term plans for that franchise. I have
I
a
don't
feeling
either.
they had a tough time trying to find a new head coach.
Right.
And I like Lovey. I think he's a great defensive mind. Love his beard.
Yeah. I know his beard is out of control, though.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. It's caveman, like wild primal,
Right?
like beard. I love it. But I think he's just kind of the buffer coach for them right now. I think he's going to get them through this rebuild, where their next couple of years are going to add more players and try to get back to that kind of competitive nature that they had for so many years when they had Deshaun Watson. So I definitely think McDaniels is much more in the long-term plans of the Raiders. But I mean, how many years is he going to have if they keep playing like this?
All right, y'all, keep it locked. We got more great stuff for you coming up on Right Down the Line. We're going to do week 5 quick recaps. We'll also do a little Are You In or You Out? Our QB Power Rankings edition. You don't want to miss that. First thing up when we come back, though, Giants beat the Packers 27-22. Hey, New York, are the Giants for real? I bet you guys think so. We'll tell you what we think on the other side of the break. Right down the line, Michael J., Mike Moritas on Hot 97.7. Keep it locked.
Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
There's nothing like waking up to some old school jams. Tune in to the Morning Boombox with Michael J. from 6 to 10 a.m. on the all-new Hot 97.7. Hot 97.7.
Hot 97.7, right down the line. Michael J., Mike Moritas hanging out with you on a Sunday, because where else would you be?
Right.
All right.
Church? No. Breakfast table? No. Us? Yes. Yes, this
Absolutely.
is where you need to be.
Check us out on our YouTube channel, right down the line. Just type it in. You'll find it. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you guys go follow us. Look, I'll tell you, man, this Giants team, what is up with that? Look, I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to do a little recap here. So the Giants beat the Packers 27-22. You know, we know, again, now, you know, we were just talking about coaches. Coaches make a difference. Coaches from time to time will completely and unequivocally change the culture from, hey, yeah, all right, we're the Giants. Look, this man has come in and absolutely brought life back into this New York Giants team. You had Daniel Jones, of course, 217, no touchdowns, but he is playing hurt. He's playing a lot better than I actually thought he was going to be. But I think the biggest thing, when we talk about Saquon Barkley, look, he had 70 yards on 13 carries, and he did have a touchdown. But they got other guys involved. They got Brightwell involved. They got Bellinger involved. They're starting to use the other pieces that they have over there. Is this team for real, Mike? Are the Giants for real? Should we be keeping our eye on these guys?
Probably not. I mean, I think they're one of the weakest 4-1 teams we've ever seen. The
Okay.
secondary, I mean, they're lacking talent in the secondary. Their receiving core is all-time bad. I mean, it's just
Brian David,
awful.
though.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, he's gotten the most out of them. I mean,
Yeah.
when I don't know if you saw that clip of him going off the field after they
Yeah.
beat the Packers last week. I was pumped up.
I was
You
too.
know, like I was psyched, dude.
was
I'm
like,
not even a
yeah.
Giants. Yeah, I was yelling with him. You know, I was cheering for him. So I mean, he's going to be a great coach. And I think that he is, if there was ever a coach who is getting the maximum out of a not so talented roster, it's
Right.
him. I love the addition of Wink Martindale. I think he covers for the ills of a defense like the Giants have in their secondary.
Coming over from
Just
Baltimore.
the coaching makes such a huge difference. And if anybody who's been paying attention to the Giants the last few years, listen, they haven't been good. Their record says it, but they've played in a lot of close games, and they
Yeah.
always, and this has been the big difference between them being somewhat competitive and being a laughing stock. They haven't been able to win those close games. And as you said, spot on. What a difference coaching makes. Shermer and whoever Judge, they couldn't shine Dabble's shoes. I think he's a really good
I
head
agree.
coach, and I think you're seeing almost like the Belichick factor, right? Where a coach just makes a difference. He makes his team better and is going to be good for maybe a couple of wins or more in a season just because of how well coached they are. That is why this Giants team is 4-1. They're well coached. They're winning the close games that they haven't been able to win in the last couple of years. And man, another big thing also with Daniel Jones is he's not putting up big numbers, but he's taking care of the football. That's another
Correct.
thing that's been an issue during his
Huge.
career. Started cleaning it up last year, but this year he's been even better. So that's a big thing for them as well. And man, the league better watch out when Dabble gets some players, because when he does,
Yep.
this team is really going to be good and really going to be moving in the right direction. They've got, I think, something like 80 million in cap space next year.
Yeah.
They're going to have the money to make the moves from here on out. Listen, you make the playoffs, great. If you don't, I think the season is already a success. I think,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to walk out of here close to 500 unless barring a terrible collapse. Maybe you sneak into the playoffs. I got to see more before I'm going to believe that. But you're moving in the right direction. I think from here on out, it's all about evaluation. Is Saquon Barkley, is he a guy we can depend on in the years to come, that we're going to give him money? Is Daniel Jones the answer at quarterback? I don't think those questions are answered yet. So I think the rest of the season is more, yes, you want to compete. Yes, you want to make the playoffs and try to win every game. But I think more importantly, it's about evaluating the pieces you have, who's staying, who's going after this year. And then, you go from there in free agency.
You like Darius Slayton? What about him?
I love Darius Slayton coming out. And really in his first, I think his rookie season, he made a pretty good impact and he looked like he was going to be a good player. What happened with him from there, I don't know. I have no clue. I think he's a really talented player. I think the
Agreed.
speed, he's got the deep threat. I think he could play the kind of like that Isaiah McKenzie role that that Dabble had in Buffalo, kind of that slot guy. But Wan'Dale Robinson is a very similar receiver to him, so that might be a guy, their second round pick from 2022. He's expected to make his debut today. Keep an eye on him the rest of the way. And I think as how well he plays will determine how much they value Slayton moving forward.
What about Green Bay, Mike? You got, there's so many, we use this word variables. There's so many variables going on over there with Aaron Rodgers. And look, he put up 2 touchdowns, but it seemed like that defense struggled a little bit. And this is a pretty good defense. But when Randall Cobb, and we talked about this last week, Randall Cobb is your guy at 99 yards. He had almost 100 yards. He threw to him 7 times, 14 yards on the average. The oldest guy on your team is the guy that you're going to look. I understand quarterbacks and their comfortability. I believe me, I get that. I watched it with Ben, with Heath Miller, and when Antonio Brown hadn't completely lost his marbles. You've had, Ben with Hines Ward. There was always, for me as a Steeler fan, I get it because I witnessed it so much and watching it over time. Tom Brady with Gronk, and there's that comfortability factor. And I understand that that's probably why Aaron is going to Randall so much. But the thing about it is They used to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Oh my God, he threw to 14 different receivers. And what's going on over there? Why is he so reluctant at spreading that ball around like he used to? And he's really been more fixated. And I don't want to say fixated because he did throw the ball around. You know, Lazard had some. I'm not saying he's not, but it just seems to me like he's falling on that security blanket, that comfortability with Randall Cobb.
Yeah, I wonder if Cobb's usage last week was more so aligned with the fact that I think Rodgers probably faced a lot of blitzes from Wink because Wink loves to blitz. So
Sure.
I could see that being a situation where, he had to get rid of the ball quickly. And who's that guy who's the closest to him usually is going to be Randall Cobb out of the slot. You look at the first 4 games, three targets, 2 targets, 4 targets, and then 13 in week 5. So maybe that was a product of the defense they were facing. But clearly there's an issue there with the receivers. I mean, you really can't depend on anybody. You got Alan Lazard, who's okay. I don't think he's a number 1 receiver. I think he's a good number 2. I don't think he's a number 1 receiver. Then your next trusted receiver is Romeo Doubs, who's a rookie. And Christian Watson just doesn't exist right now. So there's definite trust issues with that receiving core when Randall Cobb shouldn't lead a game in receiving yards any given week of any given season. So that just tells you the issues that they're having. But another thing I want to mention is the amount of times they ran the ball. I mean, they had a 20-10 halftime lead. They led pretty much the whole way until the 4th quarter. How do you only run the ball 20 times? That's puzzling to me. I think they've got to get that running game going a little bit more, help Aaron Rodgers out a little bit, make things easier, down the field. Giving your running backs 19 carries in a game you led for 3 quarters, inexcusable. They've got to work those backs in a little bit more. A.J. Dillon is not being used enough. So I think that's something that should be a point of emphasis. If you're having issues throwing the ball to your receivers, involve the running backs more, not just as rushers, but as receivers also.
You have Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I mean,
and A.J. Dillon too.
Problem?
I mean, Quadzilla.
I don't understand it. I agree with you. I thought at some point you were, especially after the first half, I thought they were going to go more with the run, and they didn't. It was almost like they abandoned it, and you were just like, the 4th quarter rolled around, and for some reason, the Giants were just in the right place, making the right plays, and Green Bay was, 3 and out, a lot of 3 and outs, and you're just like, why are you abandoning the run all of a sudden? So, yeah, it was a little disappointing. All right, so another game. Pats shut out the Lions. Now, we were talking about, Dan Carpenter, and we're really Dan Campbell, excuse me, really trying to figure out this Lions team. I really am. And I was kind of excited after I watched Hard Knocks. I'm like, okay, these guys might actually get it together. Maybe this is Campbell's year where they're just going to thrive. They just, the whole world knows who they are now. You have some flash of quite a bit of talent over on that team, and they get shut out by the freaking Patriots. And mind you, by Bailey Zappi. Come on. What?
Yeah. I mean, listen, the Lions defense is so bad. Me and you could probably, drop 29 on them. They're just terrible. Again, I'm not taking much from this game. The Lions were due, their offense was due for a real stinker. It happens to the best of the best teams. We see the Chiefs, it happened to them. We see it happen to the Bills sometimes. So not shocked at all that, a Bill Belichick led defense in New England shut down, a Lions offense that was also missing pieces. And, Bailey Zappi having that kind of success against, I mean, listen, he didn't burn the world down, but he played well.
Right.
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, that's like, Peyton Manning going against a high school defense. I mean,
dude,
it's just not fair, no matter who it is.
It's the year of the backup, and then even the year of the backup's backup. Right. There's a lot of quarterback issues around the league right now. But I do want to say this: Jamal Williams, as talented as his brother is, as much as we saw him in Hard Knocks yelling at the guys, I'm mad about last year. I don't want to be that team. And, this poor guy in that game against New England, He couldn't get anything going. 56 yards on 15 carries. Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I what frustrates me about the Lions is how much they involve Jamal Williams when DeAndre Swift is healthy. These guys are not
Right.
in the same universe as far as
Nope.
talent is concerned. DeAndre Swift, in my opinion, is one of the most, when healthy, obviously, one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. A guy who can just blow up, explosive plays, touchdown threat from anywhere on the field. You take that guy out of an offense, it's not easy to replace. And then I think
Right.
Amon-Ra was probably playing injured last week. I don't think he was 100%. So they get a much needed bye this week, and hopefully those guys come back and you see a very different team next week.
Absolutely. All right. So Rams got handled. Super Bowl champs, 22-10. Biggest part of that team's success, Mike. I'm sure you're going to say defense, but what do you think the biggest part of that success of that Cowboys team is right now?
Yeah, defense. You've brought it up a couple times in the last few weeks about maybe, people talking about the Cowboys moving to Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is winning games not because of Cooper Rush. He's
Right.
winning games because he's got a great defense and he's just not screwing games up. The pedal's going to come off that rose. I think it's going to be this week. I think this is going to be the disaster week that reminds everybody why Cooper Rush is not going to be the guy moving forward. And hopefully for the Cowboys, Dak is ready to come back next week. But this is 100% all about this defense. It is one of the best defenses in the NFL. Micah Parsons is arguably, and I think he's as close to anybody as surpassing Aaron Donald for being the best defensive player in the NFL and perhaps the best player in the entire NFL on either side of the ball. So this is nothing to do with Cooper Rush. He's done just enough to support the defense to help win games. You must bring Dak back. The offense will not ever hit its ceiling with Cooper Rush under center. It will with Dak. And if things go as well as we've seen them go in the last few years since Dak's been a quarterback, where this offense has had its flashes of putting up big points, you combine that with that defense, and I think the Cowboys are a legit contender.
They really are. Look, and when Dak comes back, and I'm glad between him and Tua that these guys are taking the proper time to really heal. And it seems like that's become the mantra with those two. Tua, look, we all know how bad that was. They're saying he's not going to play. He'll probably play next week. Still not sure how I feel about that. If I were a relative of his, if I, you know what I mean? So for me, I would, I would almost be like, hey, look, I get it, but he's going to be back for the Steeler game, according to all sources. Dak coming back, look, man, what is the rush? The kid is making sure that the ship isn't sinking. He's plugging up the holes, right? He's not, he's taking care of the football. The defense has been absolutely amazing. Micah Parsons, like you said, arguably between him and Darnold, I mean, look, you could honestly make a really, really good argument that he probably is the best pass rusher right now in the NFL. He's relentless, wherever, it just seems like where you need a play, he's there. Now, the other side of the ball, what's going on with the Rams, Mike? Why are they so bad? I know they're 2-3, so they're still in the mix. Are we really hanging on this Super Bowl hangover?
I think that's got something to do with it, but you've also lost. I mean, let's remember, you've lost some really good pieces on this team. I mean, you lost Von Miller, you lost Andrew Whitworth, you lost Odell Beckham Jr., who I don't think is going to come back to this team with the disaster that it's looking like. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Their offensive line is so bad. It's just
worse than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, worse than Pittsburgh. And, Matthew Stafford is not the guy who could run around. He's kind of like that Matt Ryan ilk where, he's stuck in cement. He's not going anywhere. So you bring pressure on him, that's a big problem. So the Rams have got to figure that situation out with their offensive line. And this was part of the reason why I chose the 49ers. I was worried to win the division. I was worried about a Super Bowl hangover. And I was worried about that offensive line. I was worried about the losses of Miller and of Beckham. Allen Robinson has not. I expected Allen Robinson to honestly come in and have the season of his life.
Right.
And he's ended up having the worst season of his life right now. So that's another thing that's been a huge blow to them is that,
Yep.
Oh, huge miss. And
Big miss.
I don't blame it all on him because I've seen a lot of instances where he's running open and just, Stafford doesn't see him.
Right.
Part of it is on him as well, of course, but man, that has been such a disappointment to see Allen Robinson not pan out. He finally gets a good quarterback and just things are just not working out. So, yeah, I'm panicking on the Rams, man. I mean, this week you get the Panthers, it's a bounce, it's a get right game. I want to see a blowout. I want to see the Rams blow out the Panthers the way you would expect them to, and then I would be a little less concerned. But if this game is any semblance of close this week, I just don't have much hope for this team getting any better.
Yeah, look, I know part of it has to do with the Super Bowl hangover. You could say whatever you want about any team. It's so hard to get to the promised land.
Right.
And people tend to forget this is a lot of football. Okay? From the start of training camp or, look, it's a lot of football. And when you go to the Super Bowl, obviously those teams have played more football and practiced more than anybody else. It wears on you. It takes a toll on you. Okay? It gets in your head. It's in your body. It's something that very few teams are able to overcome. And obviously those that Patriots team, that did what they did, it's not comparable. And like you said, so many misses, so many players, instrumental players that aren't there. And in my opinion, I think Odell, I know, sometimes he's just that guy for these particular, instances and plays. He makes big plays. That's huge, and when you don't have that anymore look, Cam Akers is an issue. I just think there's so many things offensively going wrong for them too, that this just, I completely agree with you. I think the missing pieces is just really stagnating that offense. Saying that though, you still got, Matt Stafford throwing 300 freaking yards, but it's just not enough. If you can't get in the end zone, it doesn't matter how many yards you throw. So let's see. All right. Thursday night. I'm really getting tired of ugly football on Thursday night, Mike.
Oh my God, we got Broncos in prime time again this week, man. Like what is happening?
They saw that Russell went over there and they thought,
"Yep,
here's our ticket, big
ratings
ticket.
and
ratings, sponsors, woo, yeah." No.
They say the schedule is random, right? Is that what they claim?
Yeah,
that the schedule?
that's what they say.
BS. Stop.
That's what they say.
Stop. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. Please. I can't listen to that. That's just ridiculous.
So the Washington Commodores with Lionel Richie.
Commodores.
Barely.
Yeah. One of the announcers, because we talked about that last week and it was so funny. And then one of the announcers in the Titans Commanders game said Commodores.
Yep.
And bro, I die. I was crying for like 5 minutes because
I love it.
It was so funny. And I loved it too. It was so great.
I love it. So, yeah, Lionel Richie and the boys, Carson Wentz, 12-7 over the Bears. Look, I know that they're betting on Justin Fields. I get it. They want to bet on him. I just don't. I want to believe that this kid's got the goods. We saw it in college. Sometimes it doesn't translate. I don't know if it's the coaching, because this is a young guy that needs to be molded. So I don't know if it's the coaching. And then on the flip side, you have Ron Rivera, who's out there yelling at the press because his guys are getting beat up in the press, on social media, with writers and everything else. He's kind of at his wit's end. It kind of looks like there's dysfunction on both sides in Washington and in Chicago. I mean, why do you think this game was so ugly?
Because both of these teams stink. Justin Fields, I'm not a Justin Fields believer. I kind of think that he's probably not that good and probably won't be the answer. But like every time I feel like I want to move away from Justin Fields and just be done with him, he makes a throw like he did to Dante Pettis, that the touchdown pass that he threw. And he makes a play like that, or he takes off and he runs, and you go, okay, well, look at, all right, this is what we thought we were getting. It's unfair to Justin Fields too. His receivers stink. His offensive line stinks.
Yeah.
You know, the team around him is just putrid. They have done nothing to help him out in the last couple of years. And he's not the Bears guy either. I mean, he's not Eberflus's guy. He was drafted under the previous regime. So, you know, I think with the Bears, they just stink. I think the Commanders, I think it's a situation where they stink also. I mean,
Yeah.
but Wentz did hurt his finger, so maybe that has something to do with how bad he was.
Right.
But you know, listen, I mean, the Ron Rivera era has been, you know, not great. I mean, they made a playoff appearance in his first year, so I mean, he's going to get more time. They've got to figure out the situation at quarterback. I think they need one of these 2 and 15 years. Get yourself that super high draft pick.
Get a pick.
Get yourself a franchise quarterback and go from there. And then you just have to decide, is Ron Rivera the guy you want to continue with?
Yeah.
So I think the best case scenario, and there's more dysfunction. I mean, William Jackson wants to be traded. He's not happy with the way he's being used. Just a lot of issues there. I don't blame them all on Rivera, although he's been a little weird this past week or so. Very un-Ron Rivera-like. He's very normally reserved. You have the comment about the quarterback. Yeah. And you had the comment about the quarterback, which, you know, I was taken a bit out of context, I think, but still very weird comment nonetheless. And then him going off about media coverage. What is there positive to cover about this team? Really nothing, you know? So very weird situation with him. And they're going to have to decide as they rebuild, is he the guy they want to move forward with that rebuild, or do they want to look someplace else? I could tell you Carson Wentz is not going to have a job next year as a starter anywhere, in my opinion. He's going to be a backup if he continues to play.
I think he's going to end up becoming, no diss to Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I think he's weaseling his way into that. It's kind of taking over where Ryan Fitzpatrick, with the Fitz magic. I think he's going to be that guy that we're going to see. He's going to become a journeyman. He's going to be that Charlie Batch kind of guy where he goes from team to team. And, when they need a good quarterback, when your guy goes down, a guy that's, beyond serviceable. He's a guy that, you can put him in there and, he'll get you some win. Some quarterbacks are just like that. They're not starting quarterbacks and they just can't do it week after week after week. But there's those quarterbacks that you can have as your backup and throw in at any given time. And this guy's going to give you a good chance to win that week or for 2 weeks, know?
Yeah. Wentz he's that type of guy where he'll throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, looking at an MVP one week. And then the next week he's, the worst player you've ever seen. Yeah. And what the hell happened? I mean, that was exactly the way Fitzpatrick was. So I could definitely see that. But to me, he seems like the type of guy that he doesn't love this life so much, playing football or whatever. I could see him, maybe retiring a lot earlier than you would assume he would. I mean, what's he in his? It's in his early 30s, so you figure he's got gas left in the tank. But I could see him being the type of guy that would just, hang it up and just call it a career early. I could totally see that with him.
Oh, I agree. So Carson Wentz fractured finger on his throwing hand. Apparently, he's going to see a specialist in LA on Monday. Let's see. What else did they say? Oh, so he's obviously not going to play. Taylor Heineke is obviously going to play in his role, just to give you guys an update on that. One thing I want to say before we move on, we're going to take a break and then we're going to come back and give you guys our picks and our bold predictions. In Chicago, when your quarterback is your leading rusher, you got a problem. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that Justin Fields is running. He shouldn't have ran 88 yards and you have no other back that's even close. There's a lot of issues in Chicago. We don't have time to really dive too deep into it, but I'm just going to tell you this. There's a lot of offensive issues when Justin Fields is running for almost 100 yards, and the closest guy you have is Khalil Herbert, who had 75 yards.
Yeah, and he had like 65 of them on one run. So, I mean, fluky that he was even close.
So there's an issue, and Justin Fields took off running with the ball 12 times, Mike. It's not like it was like, broken down play. And I get it. There's obviously design plays to get him to run the ball. I understand that. But I just think it's a problem. He's young. Do you really want to get this kid hurt? Are you really going to start doing this? there's a lot of offensive issues, in my opinion.
I'm
And I
on the
think
opposite side of the spectrum. I think his legs are one of the best offensive weapons they have, and I think utilize
right
them.
now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, down the road, if they have better weapons around him and he's got receivers who can catch and are good,
That
yeah,
can
sure, limit the running a little bit. But right now, I mean, if I'm the head coach and my offense can't do anything, yeah, I
Right.
don't mind if Justin Fields is pulling it down and running it. I mean, you're not going to the playoffs anyway. So if he gets
Yeah.
hurt, you never want to see a guy get hurt, obviously. But it's not like you have Super Bowl aspirations riding on Justin Fields. It's quite
Right.
the opposite.
Speaking of quarterbacks, and we come in, are you in or are you out? Quarterback power rankings. We'll do that. And we'll also give you some picks that we have as well, some bold predictions on the other side of the break. Keep it locked right down the line. Michael J. Mike Moritas on Hot 97.7. Don't go nowhere.
To you by Meals on Wheels America and the ad.
Get out of that bed and crank it up. It's the Morning Boombox with Michael J. From 6 to 10 a.m. on the all-new Hot 97.7. Hot 97.7.
The all-new Hot 97.7 right down the line. Michael J. Mike Moritas hanging out with you. Make sure you guys get over to w.gg. Use promo code Michael J Radio. Get 10% off. Jitterless energy drink. Make sure you guys go check it out. I love this stuff. It's got no calories, no sugar, no fillers, no artificial colors. You're not going to be like, after you drink this stuff. It's great. Go check it out. They have amazing, amazing flavors. And, of course, by now you guys already know my favorite is the Monkey Madness. Make sure you go over to w.gg and check it out. Use promo code Michael J Radio. Get 10% off. All right. So, Mike, I'm going to give you, I was going to say top 5, but I'm going to give you top 6. And mind you, do not shoot the messenger, okay? This is not mine. This is Sessler's over on NFL.com. So it is not my top 10, but we're gonna see if we agree with it. I want to see if you agree with his power rankings at quarterback, and if you would slide anybody else in there. But the reason I'm going to go to 6 is because he's got Brady at 6. So he's got Brady at 6. He's got Herbert at 5, Jalen Hurts at 4, Lamar at 3, Josh Allen at 2, and Patrick Mahomes at 1. So, are you in or are you out with his top 6 power rankings for quarterbacks in the NFL right now?
I mean, if this is based on strictly from performance from this year, I think it's pretty spot on.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, I'm okay with Brady being behind Herbert, Hurts, Jackson,
I am
Allen, and
too.
Mahomes because it's just by performance that's been the case. And Rodgers is right behind Brady at number 7. So I think this is accurate.
Yeah.
And I just scrolled down to number 8, and it's Geno Smith.
Geno,
Which
you
I
like
can't
that?
argue with. Look at the numbers, man.
Dude,
You know,
5 games, 1,300 yards. He's got 9 touchdowns.
75% completion rate. Like, I mean,
Tell me a coach doesn't make the difference.
yeah, I mean, he's stunk everywhere else. So where the
Right.
heck is this all coming from?
I know.
I don't know. You know, it's his 10th year, and usually guys don't figure it out in their 10th year. They usually figure it out much sooner than that if they're going to be the guy, you know?
Right.
So, but I mean, listen, as far as right now with the performances that we've seen in 2022 from these quarterbacks, yeah, I think
Right.
that these rankings are spot on. I think the only argument you might have is Jackson and Hurts 3 and 4, but I think Jackson has carried that team so much to, you know, where it is, but with his legs, that you probably put him over Hurts for now.
I would actually like to change those two. I would rather see Hurts at 3, Lamar at 4.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument for either way, certainly.
You know, and for me, Josh Allen, after that performance against my Steelers, I actually have Josh Allen at number 1 and Pat Mahomes at 2. So I like everything else except for those 4. I would swap Hurts and I would swap Josh Allen, which, like you said, you know, you can make an argument for either one of those, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do like the Justin Herbert over Tom Brady. I like the fact that he's got Geno right there at 8, and then he's got Burrow at 9 and Kirk Cousins at 10, just to give you the round out. But yeah, I mean, that would be my only issue, and only because of what Josh did against Pittsburgh. And I know some people might not think that was, you know, some major accomplishment because of just how bad they played, even into that second half where you thought there was some kind of spark and there wasn't. But I just think that this guy is just doing so much for that football team. Everybody thought that this was their year, and he's coming out week after week after week and proving that it is their year. So to me, that's why I would have Josh Allen at 1. You know, Pat Mahomes, you know, he struggled a little bit, you know. But then again, I've said it on this very program. It's almost like Mike Heath thrives on being behind, because that's when all of a sudden here come the Jets and he's, you know, and off he goes. So, but yeah, I actually like that top 10 as well. All right.
Yeah, I think with Allen and Mahomes, it's like a 1A, 1B situation. I think the argument for Mahomes being number 1 is he's probably got less weapons around him than Allen does. But,
Sure.
I mean, again, you could go either way with that one.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, give me a bold prediction for today. Give me your bold prediction. What do you got?
I mean, would you want like a game pick or
whatever you got? It could be a player. It could be a game, be an upset if you want, but give me something that other people are going to go, what? Really? It's got to be bold, baby. It's got to be bold.
Bold. Okay, the Broncos are going to score a touchdown this. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. All right, I'll give you one. I think the Eagles are going to stomp the Cowboys today. I don't think the defense is going to matter. I don't think the offense is going to matter. I think Eagles -6.5 is what I have here. I would take that. I think they're stomping the Cowboys today. This is going to be the day where Cooper Rush shows why he is not a starting quarterback. I think you're going to get 2 or 3 turnovers at him. in Cowboys territory, make things easier for the Eagles. They're not going to have to do that much against a really talented defense. I think the Eagles defense is just going to give Cooper Rush fits all day. This is where we're reminded that Cooper Rush is not going to replace Dak Prescott anytime soon. We're going to be reminded that the Cowboys are a better team with Dak Prescott under center. Eagles romp the Cowboys today. No problem. Probably by a couple of touchdowns.
I like it. It is bold.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are expecting this to be a close game because of the Cowboys' defense, but I don't see it. I think they're due for a bad week, and I think Cooper Rush is due for that just blow it up game where he just is awful.
So my bold prediction, and I wrote this down, and then I went on a couple of different sites, and I saw that somebody else had the same thing that I had. And I'm not changing it because I wrote it down. I had it at least first in my mind. But Stephon Diggs has been good. He always has been. And if you look, he's averaged about almost 50 receiving yards per game. So my bold prediction today, as much as I hate to say it, because there are issues sometimes with that Kansas City Chiefs defense, I think he's going to have a 100-yard receiving game against the Chiefs today. I think Stephon Diggs has that game, that power game today where, because first of all, let's call it what it is. That last time we saw these two go at it, it was just air arsenal after air arsenal, boom, boom, boom. And I think the prime recipient of that is going to be Stephon Diggs. And I think we're going to see 100 yards out of Stephon. Look, this is going to be an unbelievable game to watch. If it's anything like the last time they played, in the playoffs, look, I get you like T.O. used to say, get your popcorn ready, because I think that this game is going to come down to whoever has the ball last, much like it did last time. But I will tell you, I like the Bills to win this game. What about you? Who do you think wins this one?
Yeah, I like the Bills to win this one. It's going to be one of those 38-35 type deals. I hope you're wrong about Stephon Diggs because I'm playing him in like 2 different fantasy leagues this week. So I hope you're dead wrong.
But God, are you playing Brandon or something this week?
Yeah, no, it's in another league, and it's in my big money league as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a 38-35 type of game. I think the Bills will squeak it out. They have a better defense. I think that that will end up being the difference, is they'll make that one stop that they need to make. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a great game. And listen, if you for some reason were a psycho like me and watched that entire Commanders Bears game, I actually watched it because I watched it because I had Brian Robinson everywhere in fantasy, so I really wanted to watch him in a lead role, and he did pretty well. But if you were watching that game, and now the next game you're gonna watch is Chiefs Bills, make sure you're sitting down, because it's the excitement and the level of quality football that's going to be played might be a shock to your system after what you saw with Washington and Chicago on Thursday night. So just sit down and relax, no lifting heavy machinery or anything like that, because it's going to be a shock to the system to see some good football after what we saw on Thursday. Oh my God.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
Browns are favored 2.5 against the Pats. I like the Browns in this game. I think last week, you're talking about the Lions. This is the Browns. They're, Jacoby Brissett not playing all that bad. I like the Browns. The 2.5's a little much. I thought this might have been a pick'em game. But I like the Browns in this one. Who you got?
Yeah, I like the Browns too as well. This game is an interesting one to watch because of the situation with the Patriots at quarterback.
Right.
If Bailey Zappi goes out there and has another, he had a good game, not a great game, but he had a good game last week, good enough. If he goes out there and has another good game, you got yourself a quarterback controversy there, because now you're winning games with Bailey Zapp, and Mac Jones is sitting there, and do you go back to Mac when you've been having success with Bailey Zappi? I don't know. That's going to make for an interesting situation. So I'm rooting for the Patriots to win because I want to see that controversy unfold. But I think the Browns are going to win this game.
You got Ravens in East Rutherford, MetLife Stadium. Ravens coming in to play the Giants, who are 4-1. You got you have a coach in New York that spent a chunk of time in Baltimore. Does this make a difference in you picking who wins this game?
Not really. I mean,
No?
I'm trying to go on talent here. And listen, Wink Martindale revenge game. It scares me, definitely. But I would take the Ravens. I have them at 5.5 here. I would easily take that. I think that this is going to be the comeback down to earth game for the Giants. I think the Ravens are going to put up a lot of points. I think they're going to win this game pretty handily. And I think we're all going to be reminded that, yes, the Giants are 4-1 and will soon to be 4-2. Yes, that's a great record, but this is still a team that needs a lot of work, and realistically, they'll be lucky to make the playoffs. So I think this is the coming back down to earth game for the Giants. Ravens win it by a couple of scores.
Buccaneers playing Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. 9.5 is the line. The over-under is 46. Does Tampa come in and just do what Buffalo did to Pittsburgh last week?
No. I think the Buccaneers are going to win this game, but this is one of those games where you see that spread and it's just like it's like you think like, oh, it looks good to take the 9.5 with Tampa, but I could just see this being one of those games where the Steelers play better than anybody expects them to. The Buccaneers are not playing well this year. They're banged up. I think that the Steelers give them a run for their money in this game, unexpectedly probably, but it's just making out to be one of those games where the Steelers are going to play better than you expect them to and better than they've played in the past couple of weeks. They bounce back, keep this game close. I think the Bucs win, but I think the Steelers cover the 9.5 that they've got. That's a very big line for a team that, granted, is much better than the Steelers, but hasn't been playing well this year.
Yeah, I agree. That 9.5 is way too much. I wouldn't. Yeah, that it's almost like, I mean, last week, wow, didn't see that coming. But this week, definitely that 9.5 definitely won't get covered. Here's the thing. I like what she said, and that's exactly kind of how I felt. I was like, look, barring the TJ Watt, I still think that this is a very good defense when they need to be.
Yep.
You know, Hightower's been, you know, kind of that guy that's not trying to take TJ's place, but he's trying to hold this defense together with Cam Hayward. They're doing, you know, the best they can. I think they kind of have a big defensive game today. I think they're going to give Tom Brady some fits. They have to make sure that they're trying to at least get in there to push him out of that pocket, or at least push him back on his heels, which he hates being. If they can continue to do that, I think this game, I think if they can find a way to do that, I think that this game is going to be a lot closer, like you said, than people think.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to bet on, or, you know, to not bet on Tom Brady on any given Sunday. However, I wouldn't be a true Steeler fan if I didn't sit here and say that I'm still picking the Steelers to win this game. Do I think it's feasible? Possibly. You know, it's not likely, but it's possible.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the Bucs, they're vulnerable enough to where you could make the argument that the Steelers can run with them in this game. I want to see the Steelers air it out a little bit, man. I mean, this is
agreed.
The best way to attack this defense, the Bucs defense, is through the air. Challenge them deep. Get George Pickens out there. Get Chase Claypool out there. Let these guys challenge that secondary of the Bucs that is so questionable. And I do not want to see Najee Harris run the ball 25 times at 2.6 yards a clip. Please.
This is not the defense to try to break out.
No. And let me see some more Jaylen Warren. The kid has warranted more work. Let me see Jaylen Warren, and partially because I picked him up in my dynasty league last week, and I need running back help. So give me some hope at running back, please.
Dude, Jaylen is a beast, bro. How come every time he touches the ball, the Red Sea parts, and he can see Moses at the end with the tablets, but yet Najee holds on to, he gets the ball, and everything collapses.
Yeah.
You know, like a bad souffle coming out of the oven. What is up with that? Like, I don't get it. But yeah, I agree with you. Please, let's not get carried away with the run. And finally, you said, you know, your big upset pick. You think that the Eagles are just gonna stomp a mud hole in the Cowboys. And I said we had the Bills over the Chiefs. That's pretty much all I really wanted to touch on. However, I do want to say this. The Rams are favored by 10, Mike, against Carolina. No Matt Rule. Now you got Wilkes in there. I don't know, man. I think that's maybe why the line is so high, but I don't like that 10. I don't like that 10 points with the Rams. You think they cover?
I do. I think that this
Wow.
is going to be I think this is going to be the bounce back week for them. I think,
Woo.
and it's dangerous because the Panthers are due for a serviceable game. So, I
They
mean,
really are.
but PJ Walker, I don't have any faith in him. I probably have less faith in him than I do with Mayfield and Darnold, although his ability to run the ball is good because, he'll escape situations that Mayfield and Darnold can't. But I just can't fathom the Rams again coming in and just throwing up a stinker, which is what they'll have to do if this game's going to be close. So I think this is going to be the kind of the writing of the ship game. And that's not to say guarantee that the Rams are going to be so much better the rest of the year, but I think this is going to be like a bounce back game where you go, okay, maybe the Rams will be all right. Maybe they'll be okay, but they've got to win in convincing fashion, and covering this line is convincing fashion.
Mac Jones inactive. I'm reading right now. Cooper Kupp expected to play. Cam Akers out. Like I said earlier, Aaron Donald expected to play, and CeeDee Lamb also expected to play. Just a side note for you guys. Here's the other thing. I'm looking at Baker Mayfield and what he accomplished before we get out of here. I just have to talk about this because when you talk about this game, the 10 points, I think it's too much, to be honest with you. First of all, these are two quarterbacks that have been struggling the entire season. Baker's got 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. Matthew Stafford has 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Okay? These are not two quarterbacks that we're like, man, I can't wait to see this game. Look, I can't wait for this game to be over, and it hasn't even started yet. Okay? That's how uneventful and unexciting that this game might be. However, on the bright side, I agree with you on the fact that this very well could be a right the ship game for them. Get them at 500 at 3-3. Maybe Matthew Stafford removes his head from his rear end, stops throwing interceptions, gets the ball. Look, just get the ball to Cooper Kupp. Obviously, that's you know what? When you get up and go to the stadium, you should have a big sign in your locker that just says, "Get Cooper Kupp the ball." Look, dude, he's your best playmaker. After losing Odell, I mean, this is not going to be that exciting of a game. But I do agree with you that this should be their kind of comeback game. Right the ship, get them at 500. I just still don't think the 10 point. I don't think they're going to cover 10 points. I think Baker is going to find a way to try because look. His head is kind of on the block too here. We're talking about a guy that's not performing well, hasn't even hit 1,000 yards yet. They're not winning ball games. They're 1-4. This is a crucial game for Baker because they're ripping him up too. Was this a good move? Should we have brought him over? There's a lot of question marks with his play, and there's a lot of question marks with this Carolina team also, especially after losing Matt Rule. So. I still think Baker finds a little bit of magic in him. I don't think they're going to win, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, for my advice, I hope you're wrong, but I don't think it's going to be. I think the Rams will get one here, and I think it'll be a nice, easy win for them, and something that they desperately need. I think the Panthers are lost. I mean, I just think that the season is over for them. And side note, Baker's not playing this week. It's PJ Walker. So,
is it? Okay,
yes,
well, there you go.
He's got a high ankle sprain, so he's going to be out like 2 to 6. So,
look at me talking about a guy that's not even playing.
But listen, I mean, it's like it doesn't matter anyway. I mean, he stinks. I'm done with him. Let him be a backup.
Not on this injury report. That's weird.
Fire
Sorry.
him. No, you're fine. Fire him into the sun because he stinks. And it doesn't matter none of the quarterbacks they have on their roster are going to be able to fix this situation. So, PJ Walker might be their best bet because of his mobility and ability to escape. Am I worried about throws? I mean, yeah, but I mean, the other two quarterbacks can't throw for worth of nothing anyway. So it doesn't even matter whether it's Mayfield or Walker or Darnold or whoever, they're done.
Man on the moon.
Yeah. I mean, there's no coming back from that.
Well, now I see why the 10 points is there. Okay. And for some reason, I don't have him on my injury report. So, I guess I better check my injury report more often. All right. Michael J., Mike Moritas, thank you guys for hanging out with us right down the line every Sunday right here, 7 a.m., Hot 97.7. Mike, anything you want to say to the nice people before we get out of here?
Yeah, check out my work, titanswire.usatoday.com. Got articles every single day for all you Titans fans out there, or if you're about to face the Titans, your team over there in California, one of them, if you're about to play them, best way to get previews, Titans Wire.
Check them out. It's good stuff. Always, always, always good stuff over there, Mike. Appreciate it. So, don't forget, check me out tomorrow, weekdays, right here, 6 a.m., Morning Boombox, Michael J., hanging out with you. Hip-hop, R&B, freestyle. You know how we do it on Hot 97.7. But I bid you adieu. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and, of course, our new home over on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Just type in Right Down the Line, and you should be able to find us. But if you follow us, you'll be able to find the link. So there you go. All right, you guys enjoy your Sunday. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again, same bad time, same bad channel, next Sunday right here on the Right Down the Line on Hot 97.7. And as I say around here all the time, I'll sweat small stuff. We're out of here. See you.